Hi, in this lecture we will discuss system calls. System calls provide the interface between a running program, that is a process, and the operating system. These calls are generally available as assembly language instructions, but certain systems allow system calls to be made directly from a higher level language program. That is, several languages such as C, C++, Perl have been defined to replace assembly language for system programming. For example, Unix system call may be invoked directly from a C or C++ program. System calls for modern Microsoft Windows platforms are part of Win32 Application Programmer Interface API, which is available for use by all the compilers written for Microsoft Windows. First, we will discuss an example of how system calls are used. Consider writing a simple program to read data from one file and copy to them to another file. The first input that the program will need is the name of the two files. That is the name of the input file and the name of the output file. One approach is for the program to ask the user to enter the names of the two files. In an interactive system, this approach will require a sequence of system calls. First to write a prompting message on the screen and then to read from the keyboard the characters that define the two files. That is, we are getting the name of the input file as well as the name of the output file. Okay, once the two file names are obtained, the program must open the input file and create the output file. Each of these operations require another system call, and it may encounter possible error conditions also. That is, that we have experienced when the program tries to open the input file, it may find that no file of that name exists or that the file is protected against access. Sometimes we may open a file name and the system will display that no such file exists, that we have experienced. Another case is whenever we try to we try to save something in a read-only file, there will be a display, a message will be displayed to you that it is protected against write. So these are the system calls generated during error conditions. In these cases, the program should print a message on the console. That is, to print a message on the console is another sequence of system calls, and then terminate abnormally. Terminate abnormally means it is also a set of system calls. If the input file exists, then we must create a new output file. We may find an output file with the same name. This situation may cause the program to abort. To abort means a system call, or we may delete the existing file, another system call, and create a new one, that is another system. Means a set of system calls are involved in this action. Now think that both files are set up. We enter a loop that reads from the input file. That means read is a system call and writes to the output file. Write to the output file means another system call. Each read and write must return status information regarding various possible error conditions. On input, the program may find that the end of the file has been reached or that a hardware failure occurred in the read, such as parity error. On output, various errors may occur depending on the output device, such as no more disk space, physical end of tape, or printer out of paper. Printer out of paper we always experience. We may proceed with a print operation, and if it is out of paper, it will notify you. Finally, after the entire file is copied, the program may close both files. Closing files means a system call. Write a message to the console, that is more system calls, and finally terminate normally. Normal termination is a final system call. As we can see, even a simple procedure, that is a simple program to copy one file to another file, involves a heavy use of the operating system. System calls occur in different ways depending on the computer in use. Often, more information is required than simply the identity of the desired system call. The exact type and amount of information vary according to the particular operating system and call. For example, to get input, we may need to specify the file or device to use as the source and the address and length of the memory buffer into which the input should be read. Three general methods are used to pass parameters to the operating system. The simplest approach is to pass the parameters in registers. In some cases, there may be more parameters than register size. In these cases, the parameters are generally stored in core table in memory, and the address of the block is passed as a parameter in register. See the figure. This is the approach taken by Linux. Here, code for system call 13 is stored in main memory, and the address of that block is passed into the register. And we'll load the address from register X for calling system call 13. Parameters can also be placed or pushed onto the stack by the program and popped off by the operating system. We have discussed the stack implementation in detail in our computer architecture subject of first semester. System calls can be grouped into five major categories, that is process control, file management, device management, information maintenance, and communication. We'll discuss the types of system calls that may be provided by an operating system in upcoming slides. First, process control. A running program needs to be able to hold its execution either normally, that is end, or abnormally. Abnormal case, the system call is about. If a system call is made to terminate the currently running program abnormally, or if the system runs into a problem and causes an error trap, a dump of memory is sometimes taken and an error message is generated. The dump is returned to disk and may be examined by a debugger to determine the cause of the problem. Under either normal or abnormal circumstances, the operating system must transfer control to the command interpreter. The command interpreter then reads the next command. In an interactive system, the command interpreter simply continues with the next command. It is assumed that the user will issue an appropriate command to respond to any error. A process or job executing one program may want to load and execute another program. This feature allows the command interpreter to execute a program as directed by, for example, a user command, the click of a mouse, or a bash command. An interesting question is where to return control when the loaded program terminates. This question is related to the problem of whether the existing program is lost, saved, or allowed to continue execution concurrently with the new program. If control returns to the existing program, when the new program terminates, we must save the memory image of the existing program. Thus, we have effectively created a mechanism for one program to call another program. If both programs continue concurrently, we have created a new job or process to be multi-programmed. Often system calls exist specifically for this purpose, that is create process and terminate process. If we create a new job or process, or perhaps even a set of jobs or processes, we should be able to control its execution. This control requires the ability to determine and reset the attributes of a job or process, including the job's priority, its maximum allowable execution time, and so on. That is, get process attributes and set process attributes. We may also want to terminate a job or process that we created, that is, terminate process, if we find that it is incorrect or is no longer needed. Okay, having created a new job or processes, we may need to wait for them to finish their execution. We may want to wait for a certain amount of time, that is wait time. More likely, we may want to wait for a specific event to occur, that is wait event. The job or processes should then signal when that event has occurred, that is signal event. Another set of system calls is helpful in debugging a program. Many systems provide system calls to dump memory. This provision is useful for debugging, that is allocate and deallocate memory, or allocate and free memory. We can identify several common system calls dealing with files. We first need to be able to create and delete files. Either system call requires the name of the file and perhaps some of the file attributes. Once the file is created, we need to open it and to use it. We may also read, write, or reposition, rewind, or skip to the end of the file. Finally, we need to close the file, indicating that we are no longer using it. We may need these same sets of operations for directories if we have a directory structure for organizing files in the file system. In addition, for either files or directories, we need to be able to determine the values of various attributes and perhaps to reset them if necessary. File attributes include the file name, a file type, protection codes, accounting information, and so on. At least two system codes, get file attributes and set file attributes, are required for this function. During its execution, a program may need additional resources to proceed. Additional resources may be more memory, tape drives, access to files, and so on. If the resources are available, they can be granted and control can be returned to the user program. Otherwise, the program will have to wait until sufficient resources are available. If the system has multiple users, however, we must first request a device to ensure exclusive use of it. After we are finished with the device, we must release it. These functions are similar to the open and close system calls for the files. Once the device has been requested and allocated to us, we can read, write, possibly reposition the device just as we can with the ordinary files. In fact, the similarity between IO devices and files is so great that many operating systems, including Unix and MS-DOS, merge the two into a combined file device structure. In this case, IO devices are identified by special file names. Now, information maintenance. Many system calls exist simply for the purpose of transferring information between the user program and the operating system. For example, most systems have a system call to return the current time and date. Other system calls may return information about the system, such as the number of current users, the version number of the operating system, the amount of free memory or disk space, and so on. All these things are related to the system. In addition, the operating system keeps information about all its processes, and there are system calls to access this information. Generally, there are also calls to reset the process information, that is, get process attributes and set process attributes, like in file and device structures. Communication takes place between different processes and between different computers over the network. The system goals, major system goals associated with the communication are create or delete communication connection, send and receive messages, transfer status information, attach or detach remote devices. There are two common models of communication. That is, in the message passing model, information is exchanged through an inter-process communication facility provided by the operating system. Before communication can take place, a connection must be opened. That is, in this image, we have two processes, process A and process B. For process A wish to communicate with the process B, then a connection must be established or a connection must be opened. The name of the other communicator must be known, be it another process on the same CPU or process on another computer connected by a communication network. Each process has a process name which is translated into an equivalent identifier by which the operating system can refer to. The get host ID and get process ID system calls do this translation. These identifiers are then passed to the general purpose open and close calls provided by the file system or to the specific open connection and close connection system calls, depending on the system's model of communications. The recipient process usually must give its permission for communication to take place with an accept connection call. Processes that will be receiving connections are special purpose daemons, system programs provided for that purpose. They execute a wait for connection call and are awakened when a connection is made. The source of the communication known as the client and the receiving daemon known as a server. Then exchange messages by read message and a write message, system call. The close connection will terminate the communication. This is the way by which a message processing communication model works. That is, process A wants to communicate with the process B through the kernel. First, a connection is established, then process B will accept the connection, then it will act as the server, and the process A will be acting as the client, and the messages will be passed. That is, write message and read messages will be done. After the communication over, the connection will be closed. Okay, next model is shared memory model, that is shown in the next figure. In the shared memory model, processors use a map memory system calls to gain access to regions of memory owned by other processors. Normally, the operating system tries to prevent one process from accessing another process's memory. Shared memory requires that several processes agree to remove this restriction. That is, they may exchange information by reading and writing data in the shared area. The data and the location are determined by these processes and are not under the operating system's control. The processes are also responsible for ensuring that they are not writing to the same location simultaneously. This is the condition we have to be aware while using shared memory model.